Welcome to Unit 8, Section 2, Choosing an Early Childhood Education Program. After studying this lesson, you'll be able to differentiate between licensing and accreditation of early childhood education programs, explain why housing and equipment differ among the different types of early childhood education programs, summarize the three aspects of quality involved in staffing programs for young children, as well as identify three signs that a program encourages parent communication and participation, contrast developmentally appropriate and inappropriate practices, list 4 indications of a culturally rich early childhood education program, and describe ways to help children adjust to early childhood education programs. Choosing high-quality education programs for early childhood is vital to the successful care and education of children. Children are defenseless clients of the programs they attend. They cannot measure the quality of a program for themselves or take action if the quality is poor. Children depend on their parents to find quality programs for them. Often parents cannot judge a program by only meeting staff members, checking the indoor and outdoor areas, or seeing a posted certificate that states the program meets state standards. Rather, when assessing the quality of a program, you should consider a number of factors and observe the program's day-to-day activities. Important factors to consider when choosing an early childhood education program include their adherence to regulations, housing and equipment, quality and number of staff, parent communication and participation, use of early learning standards, quality activities, cultural diversity, costs of childcare, and special services. All quality childhood education programs are governed by regulations. Regulations are standards that govern how a program operates. They are applicable to various types of early childhood programs. Some regulations, such as fire safety, apply to all programs. Other regulations apply to either private programs or public programs, or center-based or family child care programs. Almost all regulations are mandatory, but at least one is voluntary. The most common set of regulations for group programs is called a license. Licensing regulations address program housing, equipment, staff, children's services, and business operations. In all cases, certificates awarded to programs meeting regulations must be periodically renewed. When choosing an early childhood education program, parents should ensure that these programs meet all appropriate regulations. Adherence to regulations, however, does not guarantee high quality. This is due to the following reasons. Most regulations are minimum standards. Programs may almost completely meet regulations, barely meet regulations, or fall somewhere in between these extremes. Licensing regulations vary because these are not federal standards. Rather, they are state-determined standards and thus vary from state to state, so quality, in a like manner, will vary with the regulations. Some regulations are easier to observe than others. Concrete regulations, like having a fence around the outside of the play area, is something that's easy to observe. More abstract regulations, such as warmth and nurturance of staff, are much more difficult to observe. Regulations are not always enforced. Some have little to no enforcement. For example, there are many regulations for family childcare homes, but due to the number of homes and the limited state funding for inspections, these programs are seldom checked. Regulations difficult to observe are not as likely to be enforced as those that are easy to observe. To ensure quality beyond adherence to mandated regulations, adults should look for the accreditation of the program. Accredited programs are not only licensed, but have met even higher standards of quality set forth by a professional organization. Thus, accredited programs are like high achievers on tests. Accreditation attests to the fact that the program has voluntarily met standards of high quality. The types of housing and equipment in an early childhood education program will vary with the program's goals. For example, a family childcare home will have different housing than a kindergarten, and a kindergarten will provide different materials than a Montessori program. Furniture, equipment, and materials should always meet the needs of the children that are in the program. Regardless of the type of housing and equipment that are provided, all housing and equipment must be safe, sanitary, and meet health standards. Equipment should be plentiful enough to prevent long waits and possible aggressive acts among children. Housing and equipment should also include adequate space for activities and comfort of both children and adults. A major factor in the quality of an early childhood education program is the quality and number of caregivers. Young children are dependent on caregivers and need plenty of adult help and supervision. Positive caregiver interactions can aid children's development, but negative ones can have damaging effects. When choosing an early childhood education program, parents should consider the quality of the caregivers, the adult-child ratio, and staff turnover. Caregivers for children should be in good physical and mental health. For a positive experience, children must feel secure, loved, and wanted, knowing they matter to others. Children need adults who hug, comfort, listen to them, talk with them, and say no, and correct them when needed. Quality caregivers provide guidance for children. They apply their knowledge of child development at each stage in a child's development. For example, quality caregivers of infants will cuddle them and accept their dependency. Quality caregivers of toddlers will encourage them to explore and learn, and quality caregivers of preschool children will welcome children's curiosity, questions, and energy. Quality staff members must also be able to work well with coworkers as a team. They must also communicate effectively with parents, be sensitive to parents' concerns, and convey needed information. State regulations identify the minimum required adult-child ratio and group sizes for various types of early childhood education programs. As is true of other licensing regulations, adult-child ratio and group size requirements vary from state to state. However, all states base their numbers on professional recommendations. An adult-child ratio is the number of adults per the number of children in a program. An adult-child ratio of 1 to 10, that means 1 adult to 10 children, if it's 1 to 10, if it's read like that. The way of presenting the ratio can be reversed by saying the child-adult ratio is 10 to 1. This means exactly the same thing. There are 10 children for each adult. Support staff and regular volunteers, though vital to quality programs, are not counted when adult-child ratio is calculated. Adult-child ratios tend to be highest for accredited programs or for programs enrolling very young children and children with special needs. Group size refers to the number of children in one room who will interact with each other throughout the day. Accredited programs, programs for young children, and programs serving children with special needs tend to have the smallest group sizes. Because older children and those without disabilities tend to require less physical care compared with other children, they can be safely cared for and educated in rooms with a lower adult-child ratio and in groups that are somewhat larger. When choosing early childhood education programs, you can inquire about the adult-child ratios and group size. After enrolling a child, you can also spot check these numbers at different times throughout the day. Some directors enroll the maximum number of children and allow drop-in children to attend, which increases the number beyond the licensing limits. Typically, an adult-child ratio that's recommended for birth to 1 year is 1 to 3 and a group size of 6. 1 to 2 years is 1 to 4 and a group size of 8. 2 to 3-year-olds is 1 to 6 and a group size of 12. And 3 to 6 years, excluding first grade, is an adult ratio of 1 to 9 with a group size of 18. Beyond parents, caregivers, and other family members, staff members are the most important people in children's lives. Infants and toddlers in childcare can be deeply attached to these caregivers. They often spend more waking hours with their program caregivers than with their own parents. Despite this, most early childhood education programs experience staff turnover. Staff turnover is a term used to describe caregivers who leave a program and are replaced, often statistically presented as a rate. Early childhood education programs with high staff turnover can be damaging to infants, toddlers, and children with special needs. Children need consistency, and it is recommended that they have the same caregivers for over a year. In the United States, the annual staff turnover rate for early childhood education programs is about 40%. This is largely due to low pay as caregivers leave programs to seek better paying jobs. The median annual income for caregivers is only $21,000 annually. If wages were higher, staff turnover would decrease. However, higher wages would increase the cost of childcare even more for parents, making programs even less affordable. So, children rely on consistent caregivers to form attachment relationships. So, how would a high staff turnover impact their attachment relationships? Why would that be bad? So, think about the answer to that. In high-quality programs, staff members encourage parent involvement. Children benefit when all their caregivers work together as a team. When choosing early childhood education programs, you should look for programs that practice the following things. They work with parents as a team. Quality programs employ teachers who know a great deal about child development and understand parent-specific goals for their children. These teachers respect parents' goals and work with the parents to achieve them. An exception to this is when parents' wishes violate program policy or professional ethics. Convey the importance of parent participation in the program. A quality program will communicate to parents that they play the most important role in their children's lives. These programs emphasize that staff members respect parents as children's first teachers and encourage parent participation. They acknowledge that the parent-child relationship influences a child's development more than any other aspect of a child's life. Know about each family they serve. Staff members at quality programs work to understand the cultures represented in the program and how these cultures affect families. They acknowledge that a family's culture might influence parenting practices and child development. They respect each culture and make efforts to get to know each child's family. Lastly, they provide opportunities for parent communication and participation. They communicate frequently with parents and provide ample opportunities for parents who want to participate. Programs should respect parents' rights to refuse involvement, however. So an example of combining parent and teacher goals, maybe the goal area is discipline. The teacher's goal is children should begin to learn self-control, and through learning this, they use problem-solving skills to resolve conflict and gain self-esteem. The parent's goal is children should respect authority. Children have to respect parents just as adults have to respect the authority of their employers. Using both goals together, after discussing both of the goals, teacher may suggest how both can be met. For example, children would be asked to resolve some of their conflicts with the teacher's help. They'll also be expected to follow rules and show respect for each other and property. In some situations, like safety issues, they will be expected to comply immediately with what the teacher says. All quality early childhood education programs are based on goals for children's development. Early childhood education program goals sometimes differ, though, making all programs unique. This is because various programs were founded at different periods in history and were based on child developmental knowledge of that time. Today, many preschool programs follow their state's early learning standards, also called foundations and guidelines, which are expectations for young children's development. Some learning standards include benchmarks under broader outcomes. All states have identified learning standards for preschool children. Besides preschool learning standards developed by each state, Head Start has defined outcomes for children enrolled in this federal program. Early learning standards are used for deciding on program goals. They benefit program planners because they outline the rich potential for children's growth and development. How these standards are actually used by the program planners and teachers depends on the early childhood education program. Teachers in quality programs follow early learning standards but plan how to meet them by using developmentally appropriate practices, or DAPs. DAPs are practices that are based on knowledge about child development, the strengths, needs, and interests of each child within a group, and the social and cultural context in which children enrolled in a given program live. Developmentally inappropriate practices, or DIPs, are the opposite of DAPs. DIPs are practices that do not take into account knowledge about child development, each child's strengths and needs, and the cultural context of children's lives. A program that incorporates early learning standards using DIPs is not desirable for young children. To determine whether a practice is developmentally appropriate or inappropriate, a person should consider not only the practice, but also the child and how the practice is conducted. For example, asking 2-year-olds to sit still for a 15-minute story would be a DIP. This same activity would likely be a DAP for 5-year-olds, depending on their attention spans. Also, a well-presented story for a young audience makes the sit-still time less lengthy to children. In choosing a quality early childhood education program, caregivers can look for how these programs use DAPs to incorporate early learning standards. To contrast DAPs and DIPs, let's look at assessment. Teachers in a DAP situation, teachers assess children mainly through observations and note what they observe about each child in anecdotal records and check sheets. They often create a portfolio, which includes the teacher's observations of a child and sample of the children's work. And then we share the portfolio with parents. Whereas a DIP for assessment would be assessing the children through tests or year of the end standardized test, and then comparing each child's test scores with the norms of how a typical child performs, and then sharing the results with the parents. As you can see, one of those makes more sense for the age of the children, the DAP, than the DIP does. The DIP would make more sense for older children. Quality early childhood education programs provide appropriate and quality activities for children. Young children are holistic learners who learn best through play. Quality programs should acknowledge this importance and then guide play so it is goal-oriented, not random or chaotic. For infants and toddlers, quality activities mostly involve primary care. In primary care, one primary caregiver feeds, diapers, soothes, plays with, and reads to a given child. Most primary caregivers are assigned 3 or 4 children. Other caregivers who help the child are secondary. Secondary caregivers provide care consistent with the primary caregiver. Because infants and young toddlers have their own learning agendas, caregivers plan quality activities by providing an interesting environment and following each child's lead. During the preschool years, quality activities involving primary care are replaced by activities that promote learning in all domains, satisfy curiosity, and build confidence. Quality activities enable preschool children to develop feelings that they can handle tasks with just a little adult help. Quality preschool programs use DAPs in their day-to-day routines and planned activities. For example, in these programs, eating serves a purpose beyond curbing hunger. Snacks and meals offer time to learn about foods and styles of eating, to practice table manners, and to talk with others. During day-to-day routines, children also learn self-care, independence, and self-help skills. In quality preschool programs with DAPs, all activities are planned to help children develop these program activities include language activities, which improve language skills and involve talking, listening, reading, or looking at books, and maybe even scribbling a grocery list in the housekeeping center or signing a drawing. Math activities, which improve math skills and involve counting, matching shapes in puzzles, measuring and noting how to use math symbols in everyday life. Social activities, which involve social interactions and children trying new roles, helping each other, recognizing emotions in others, and showing empathy and helping plan events. Science activities, which teach children about their living and non-living world. These activities involve pets, plants, foods, water, sand, weather, and seasonal changes. Creative activities, which allow children to enjoy expressing themselves through art, dramatic play, music, and storytelling. Motor activities, which help children develop motor skills. Gross motor skills develop through active play, especially outdoor play. Fine motor skills become refined as children manipulate materials like art materials, writing tools, puzzles, and building materials. And then multi-developmental activities, which aid multiple areas of development. For example, activities such as block building, sand and water play, cooking, visual arts, music, science, and literature impact many areas of development. Quality activities might also include field trips to take children to new places. Field trips teach children about their communities and develop multicultural understandings. For example, a field trip to the fire station might help children learn about firefighters and experience firefighting in a new and exciting way. Presenting worthwhile activities for children requires careful planning. In a quality program, teachers plan specific activities and materials to meet selected goals. Written plans are usually formatted as either lesson plans or activity plans. A lesson plan contains a specific goal objective related to a standard. Activities to help the child meet the objective and assessment of the learning is usually, and that's usually written for kindergarten or school-age children. While a lesson plan contains one or two goal objectives, an activity plan incorporates several standards at the same time for more holistic learning. Potential activities to aid learning, and an informal assessment. Activity plans are mostly written for preschool children. In these plans, most activities are guided by a unifying theme, like farm, weather, or families, that is carried through both large group and individual learning group activities. Activity plans tend to be more open-ended, so preschool children can take the lead in their activities, and teachers can scaffold their children's learning. Unlike most lesson plans, activity plans usually last for several days. High-quality early childhood education programs take steps to become culturally diverse. Cultural diversity provides opportunities for children's multicultural education, an important part of children's education in a global society. Understanding of cultural diversity develops as a result of positive approach by the parents and employees in an early childhood education program. In multicultural education, young children work to develop self-awareness and notice differences among themselves and others. In a carefully planned program, children will have the chance to establish their cultural identities, respect diversity, and develop unbiased attitudes. In a culturally diverse program, staff and other adults do the following. They affirm children's identities. They learn how to pronounce children's names and say some words in each child's language. They help children learn to describe themselves and their activities. Affirming children's identities can help children who are experiencing culture shock, which is an uncomfortable response to an unfamiliar culture. They help children learn about people who are different from them. They aid children in noting differences, especially physical differences among people. They are able to note these differences around 30 months of age and need experiences with people who are different from them. Programs with little diversity can find ways for children to explore differences outside of the classroom, like through community resources. Encourage children to see people as individuals and not groups. Staff can affirm individual identities and tear apart cultural generalizations. They can provide multicultural books that point out the inaccuracies of sweeping generalizations. For example, children could read to learn that not all older people are inactive. They listen to and answer children's questions. Staff can use questions, even questions that reflect bias, as learning experiences. For example, if children mention skin color or eye shape, you may say, "We are born with differences. These differences make all of us special." Instead of criticizing children for biased statements, you can acknowledge statements with an explanation and then show positive acceptance of differences. With older children, you can explain that biased statements are behaviors that hurt others. Help children learn that almost all human activities can be done in different ways. Staff can affirm differences in the ways people speak, act out family roles and activities, appreciate art and music, and learn at home or school. And respect diversity by making the program culturally rich. Staff can work to include children representing many different cultures. They can include diverse materials, activities, and people in their programs. Ensuring cultural diversity in early childhood education programs can be challenging for two reasons. First, many programs are fairly homogeneous, or more alike than different. This is because parents tend to choose programs similar to their family and religious backgrounds, cultures, and views on early childhood education, guidance, and discipline. Second, multicultural education is not taught as directly as other types of learning. These understandings are not developed through specific curriculum activities, but rather through incorporation into many activities. Since 2000, the cost of childcare has increased twice as fast as the median income of families. Today, it costs almost equal college costs. Childcare costs are more than rent costs, and in 20 states, childcare for 2 children exceeds the cost of home mortgage payments. While the quality of a program does not necessarily correlate to its cost, high-quality programs for young children do tend to be expensive. Costs of programs include costs of staff salaries, buildings, equipment, food, and supplies. These costs vary with the type of program, days, and hours of care, age group served, and location. For example, staffing costs for programs with infants, toddlers, and children with special needs may be higher than staffing costs for preschool programs. Before and after school programs serving only school-age children cost more per hour than most full-time childcare programs. These costs increase with any added special services, such as transportation or special program activities like dance, gymnastics, and foreign languages. Besides direct costs, early childhood education programs usually have both additional costs and cost credits, such as hidden added costs. Examples are costs of transportation, supplies, and disposable diapers, if cloth diapers would have otherwise been used. Services or items donated to an early childhood education program are hidden added costs too. Hidden cost credits are credits that lower the direct cost of childcare. These include money earned from a second income, money saved in the cost of utilities, and food for in-home care and childcare tax credits. When choosing an early childhood education program, parents must assess program costs. While costs may sometimes indicate the high quality of a program, families will not benefit for paying for care that they cannot afford. So, high-quality programs for children are usually expensive. Do you think that the government should pay some of it? How do our U.S. policies compare to those of other nations? Do you know? Maybe do some research. When choosing early childhood education programs, some families look for programs that offer special services. These services might include transportation to and from the program, childcare for children with special needs, or extended hour care. Programs with these services are not always conveniently located. If several families need the same services, they may be able to persuade programs to add these services. Work-related childcare programs are good examples of businesses that meet the special childcare needs of their employees. For example, some hospital childcare programs are open 24 hours a day to serve employees' children. Some children may experience difficulty or uneasiness transitioning from home care to an early childhood education program. These children may experience separation anxiety or feel nervous for the first few days away from home. Once you've chosen a quality program, you can make the adjustment seem casual. Rather than talking often about the change and seeming anxious, you can stay calm and confident about your child's ability to adjust. You may say, "I know there are many new boys and girls, but you will make new friends. Everyone is new for a while." About a month before enrolling a child in the early childhood education program, you can explain to the child what the program is like. He or she may explain that there will be other children, toys, and activities. The parent and child can also visit the program and get to know children who are enrolled. If children do not adjust well to a program, even after a few weeks, you should investigate the cause. Unannounced visits to the program might reveal problems. Parents can also ask teachers what problems they've noted and what efforts are being made to help their child adjust. Children can be encouraged to share with parents why the program makes them uncomfortable. Parents should take children's answers seriously. If no care problems are found, you can find other ways to help the child adjust. You might offer the child more chances to play with other children or ask the child's doctor for advice. If you do find problems with the care, you should immediately look for a new placement. With their children's safety and well-being as the primary concern, you can monitor the situation closely until a new program can be found. You can also give the child extra love and support as they search for a more acceptable program. Once a new program is selected, you may want to begin care gradually, if at all possible. All right, that is the end of this section and this unit. Thank you for listening.